followed. But really, do they have a case? So tonight, let's speak with a lawyer who will be helping us with some legal perspectives to this latest development, as well as judicial interpretations of EFCC's powers to investigate states. Umar Aminu Kalgo is also the secretary of the Nigerian Bar Association, Benin Kebbi branch. He joins me virtually from Kebbi State. Good evening, Mr. Kalgo. Welcome to Politics Tonight. Thank you so much.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Right. You know, this is not the first time we would be seeing states challenge the powers of the EFCC to investigate their finances. In 2022, Rivers and Oyo states did same. But this time we have about 16 states in total. So first, do these states' governments have a case? Does the EFCC have any constitutional power and control over public and consolidated revenue funds of a state? Or to what extent is it entitled to audit states' accounts or tamper with its bank statements and records?
This matter is sub judice, meaning that is before the court.
Yes.
So what I would do is I would try to show what the laws that are there and what, but not to give any opinion on that. So starting with that, I would say the issue of convention, they are relying on Section 12. I want to dissect what Section 12 is essentially saying of the Constitution. It is referring that whatever is a treaty need to be ratified before it becomes a law in Nigeria. And subsection 2 of that section clearly indicate that such doing, it is where such things that need to be given effect emanating from a treaty that are not included in the exclusive list in the Constitution. Exclusive list refer to the list that the federal government have full powers, the exclusive powers. Only the federal government have power to make laws on such areas. So you see, whatever need ratification has to be something that is not in the exclusive list. So here we need to wait and see whether the the Supreme Court, when it interprets if actions of the functions of EFCC are within the exclusive list or outside the exclusive list. So to me, this issue of this case particularly, if you look at it in the public domain, what really concerns most ordinary Nigerian is what is the motive behind the filing of this case. Because when you look at the war on corruption in Nigeria, you can see that the war on corruption, EFCC is one of the front runners, regardless of the checkered, history or what you will say pertaining to that. It has, if you talk of corruption, the highest profile cases ever convicted in Nigeria emanates from the work of this EFCC. So you can see these states, the population, the populace are looking at what is the motive that now generate to file in this case. And I think no elitist finance will obscure these questions that are being raised everywhere by the ordinary Nigerians, because it has come to many Nigerians that a lot of times we say corruption fight backs. And look at even the chairman of EFCC, when you look at all of them, starting with Nuhu Rubadu, he has an inglorious exit when he left that office. Coming down to the just past chairman, he too, you can see what happened. He was suspended. I think when a checkered history that people, Magu also. So you look at these things and you begin to wonder in the issue.
So, Mr. Kalgo, before we dig deeper, help us with some clarification. And for the purpose of clarity, take us back memory lane on how the establishment of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission came about. what necessitated the need for an anti-graft agency?
Yes. The reason why this issue of foreign treaty comes about, I think, is largely due to what is there on the website about the history of EFCC itself, because that's where you find some connection with other intergovernmental issues, because there is a reference in the history of EFCC pertaining to Financial Action Task Force, which is a G7 initiative. When we say G7, I think it's a well-known thing, the great powers, the great economies of the world. So they have an intergovernmental organization, and they initiated fight against money laundering back in 1986 or thereabout. And they realized that they identified some 12 countries that were not very cooperative, and Nigeria is one of them. So they now encourage that in terms of fighting money laundering, governments need to have an intergovernmental interaction to stem out this. So that's the reference, which that is in the history. But when you take our laws, the Nigerian laws, you will see that the EFCC Act is an act which does not make any connotation, any connection within the law with any treaty. Okay. Let me put it into perspective. You see, we have some laws that emanate from a treaty in Nigeria. Example, the African Charter on Human and People's Rights Ratification Act. There is an act, Ratification Act. This is a treaty that comes to Nigeria as a treaty, and it goes to have the ratification needed at the National Assembly. That's why today when you quote that law, you find it directly. So this law I'm giving is an example of a law that emanates from a treaty, and even when it comes into our law, it is carrying a name, but it is referred to as African Charter on Human and People's Rights Ratification Act. So this is a clarification.
Thank you for that, Mr. Kalgo, because it was important for us to go there, because those who have continued to question the power of the EFCC to investigate states' finances have held on to the doctrine of federalism to argue that each tier of government is expected to govern its own affairs by a set of laws made by its legislative arm. But does it also have anything to do with the offense committed? I mean, especially if the offenses are charged under the provisions of the Penal Code, which is a federal legislation. Would you say that the owner of the subject matter of the charges is immaterial? And what is material is that a federal enactment has been violated.
Well, let's have a parable. Let's have a parallel example.
Okay.
Policing. Let's talk of policing. Policing is in the exclusive list, and it is the federal government that have right to make laws against that. But regardless of that, the states make laws. Who prosecute those laws? It's the Nigerian police, a federal government apparatus. I mean, if we are to take what they are referring to in a doctrinaire situation, it means that the state will have all apparatus. There won't be any need for exclusive list in that regard. So I think this is another parallel example to draw with. For me, I would say if I am approached simultaneously with briefs to be part of, to offer legal services simultaneously, I think I will rather choose the part of the federal government. If I have such briefs coming to me directly, I will choose the one of the federal government in this case.
Right. So because this matter is before the courts, we cannot really say a lot about it. But let's talk about the EFCC. How has the commission performed since its establishment? Has the commission really lived up to expectations?
Well, the expectations are huge, because when you think of Nigeria, what Nigeria must fix is the issue of corruption. We must fix it to make way forward. And when you look at the country at large, you will know that we have a long way to go. All the insecurity, whatever we are seeing, are just symptoms of that. But by and large, going by what the EFCC have done, you can hardly have a name that is feared in every quarters when it comes to corruption, and like the EFCC. Despite its checkered history and what people are saying that maybe at times it is used for political gains and what have you. And on the website, I think the track record shows in 2020, EFCC made 976 convictions. When we say convictions, all the cases they won, not the cases they prosecute. In 2021, they made 2,220 cases, convicted cases, which they won, not including the one they lost, which ordinarily they are always greater. At times, you find that the cases lost are even greater. And in 2022, the convictions they made is 3,785. All these are available at their website with all the particulars you need. I'm not holding brief for EFCC, but the highest cases we have in terms of fighting corruption are the convictions we have of former governors in this country, which rose to the level of going to the Supreme Court. What happened at the end? We know they got a presidential pardon. So these are issues that you have to look. In this, the prosecution have done its case, and at the end of the day, political will come to play. Also, another important case to look at is Farouk Lawan, the former member House of Representatives. He has been convicted even by the Supreme Court. My question is, he was alleged to have collected bribe, and the person who gave him this bribe was identified. Is there anything against the person who bribed him? That's a question to ask. So ordinary Nigerians are having that, no, corruption is fighting back. A lot of people are saying that. So we need heroes. We need heroes that are fighting corruption. And Farouk Lawan's issue was a probe over the issue of subsidy, and it has identified many companies. Is there any conviction regarding such companies that are identified? So attention has been,
Mr. Kalgo, I mean, for you, there's been some level of progress, but really, is the EFCC really independent?
You see, independence in Nigeria, I mean, for everyone to perform his function is what even is tying every apparatus of government from performing fully is this corruption we talk about. Independence is relative. So far as you find people, I mean, corruption coming into place, it will always, I mean, sever the functions of apparatus of government. But I would say, if you ask Nigerians, what is the hero? What hero do we have as an organization? What institution is you can give some credibility in fighting corruption? I think EFCC will come to fore, even though we are not saying that they have performed optimally to our liking, but they are front burner in that regard.
I mean, you've just said that for the Commission, there's been some level of progress. But if after 20 years, Nigeria is still a highly corrupt nation, what then is the problem? Is it really about the Commission or the increasing number of highly corrupt individuals in the country? And also, are you an advocate of the creation of a separate agency or a task force that will be charged with the sole responsibility of conducting integrity tests on the EFCC to weed out corruption?
Sincerely, I have to tell you something. I will talk in retrospect. You see, we have had a momentum to fight corruption with the coming of President Muhammadu Buhari, because he has that legendary, I mean, aura that he is an incorrupt person. And when he came, if you remember, when he won, even the checkpoints that are collecting money, they stopped. That is the kind of momentum we should have, forge ahead, but it was lost. We lost that momentum. Let me tell you something. I'm a legal practitioner. What we needed is a mindset. We need an awakening to do that. When he won, he was president-elect. I have to write a letter to Mr. President through the chairman of the APC then. I advocated for something similar to what South Africa has done after apartheid, Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We need to come and talk about corruption because it has become institutionalized. It has become like norm, de facto, the way corruption is in Nigeria. So we need to come as a mindset that need to be created and a momentum for us to fight it. Then I didn't believe that our legal system can help us to eradicate it completely. So with this, I'm advocating that it should be a popular, enlightenment, so that, look how we have gone. That momentum that we have lost taken us back. When in 2015 people are vying to vote for President Buhari, they are voting to stem out corruption. But now there is a bit of disappointment, and people are no more looking for, it's not some of the things that they are considering while voting, and that is an unfortunate situation. So I think fighting corruption is coming to terms. All Nigerians have to. It has to be like when we want to remove subsidy. What helps the government in convincing the populace that this subsidy had to be removed? They say that it is a corrupt regime. So you see, that's kind of level of enlightenment we need to have, and we have to come to terms, because corruption has trickled down to even our secondary schools and what have you, if I may say without prejudice, the way our children are writing exam and what have you.
So, Mr. Kalgo, how do we address the gaps in Nigeria's fight against corruption? Because you just said that systemic corruption is a major obstacle to stability and economic development in the country. And if I'm to go by reports, estimates show that in the 60 years since independence, corruption has cost the Nigerian economy more than $550 billion. You have the EFCC recovered at least $750 million in local and foreign currency linked to corruption and fraud in 2021. The country's endemic corruption also contributes to this overall weak rule of the law, as measured by the World Justice Project Rule of Law Index, which ranked Nigeria 120 out of the 140 countries surveyed on absence of corruption in 2022. So how do we address these gaps?
As the first EFCC chairman, look at how ingloriously he was taken out of it. When we have the immediate past, the vibrant immediate past EFCC chairman, you can see how it got. He was suspended. I think only Farida, relinquished that position without any. So I want to say, look at a lot of places. You see, we need to. It has to be a mindset, and we have to inculcate it, and we have to make it. I can see that Nigeria, I believe we can have that mass mobilization, because the issue of subsidy, the government was able to show the ordinary person that, look, this subsidy, there is a lot of things happening. And what is happening, that there is a corrupt regime that is taking out what is supposed to be meant for you. So with the current situation, I think the government has to do a lot to gain, the trust of the ordinary Nigerians, so that we face the issue of corruption wholehearted.
Because for some of your colleagues, they say corruption in Nigeria has assumed a dangerous dimension, such that the more we fight it, the more it spreads. Most times we always point accusing fingers at politicians. But according to a recent survey by the NBS, Nigerians paid 721 billion naira, representing 0.35% of the entire gross domestic product of Nigeria, as bribes to public officials in 2023. And the largest share of citizens that had contact with healthcare professionals for bribery was 30%, and public utility officers at 24%, while police officers came third at 20%. You know, that was to illustrate that it's a thing that should be affiliated to just politicians. But for you, can we ever defeat corruption in Nigeria?
I believe we can. You see, it has to come. We are trying to do it now when we have the opportunity. Let me give you an example. What would you say for someone living in Zamfara now with the issue of bandits? Look at how they are living. Some things are unthinkable happening there. What do you think of such people? They will forsake anything to regain their peace. So what we are saying, corruption is a trajectory to anarchy. We don't want to go there. And these symptoms that are coming, we don't want them to force us to reflect when it is too bad. It's just like when you have a child. When you know some dangers, you try to show your child that this thing is dangerous before he learns it the hard way. So we are trying to say that let's all come together and know that we don't have any nation but Nigeria. I have opportunity last August to travel through Benin Republic. What I saw there, I was highly impressed. Those people have reason to be very, very proud of their country, despite their meager resources. When you see their roads, it's something. When you see their power lines, their armored cable, when in our own country, our transformers are vandalized to remove armored cable to go out. Here I'm talking their distribution lines, not lines that, even their distribution lines that run through their cities. Their roads are clean. I travel throughout the night without any concern. And how the police, no checkpoints. So I would say, I remember Nigeria before, when we have the opportunity of flying our roads at whatever hour you like. So we don't have, the reason I said we don't have option is we don't want that trajectory to force us by circumstances when it is, we learn it the hard way. So we better take action when the opportunity is right. And I think this is a good opportunity so that the government will rally. Let's make corruption, fighting corruption, a focal point in whatever we do in this.
All right, Mr. Kalgo, let's go for a break, and when we come back, we will continue this conversation.
Information is power, information is security, information is knowledge. On Labor Lens, we believe that working people around the world have real questions of their own. They want to know how the world of work operates, what it means to the employer of labor, how policies affect workers in the workplace. On Labor Lens, I ensure we engage effectively the organized labor, organized private sector, and government to get out of them information workers are in need of. I am Sharon Ijason, asking questions that make you get sense of the workplace.
Wherever you see destruction, it's because God is absent. There is no destruction in God. So who started killing from Genesis? Satan. Jesus exposed him. The thief cometh not, but for to steal, to kill, and to destroy. But I am come that you may have life and have it how much? More abundant. I prophesy as your amen is coming like thunder. Whatever is yours, receive it now.
Welcome back to Politics Tonight, everyone. Thank you so much for staying with us on the program. Tonight, our conversation is focused on the war against corruption as 16 state governors challenge the act establishing EFCC. And I've been speaking with Umar Aminu. Kalgo is a lawyer and also the secretary of the Nigerian Bar Association, Benin Kebbi branch. Mr. Kalgo, thanks a lot for staying with us on the program. I want us to put this conversation into proper setups or establishments. And this is one of the many reasons why young Nigerians are leaving You hear young Nigerians complain of how you have to know certain persons in government establishments before you can get a job. And this is a systemic rot that smears the integrity of public service in Nigeria. What challenge does this pose to nation building?
It's huge and devastating to the country. Let me give you the psyche of the ordinary Nigerians. As a lawyer, I have got many briefs that people are coming to say that they have given so money to acquire certain job. And such people have failed, and now they want to institute a case. This goes to tell you in the psyche of that particular person, he doesn't even know that giving bribe is an offense in itself. So this is how far it has gone. When I talk about making this issue something of a mindset and a focal point in Nigeria, I remember the regime of General Murtala Muhammad, as we had, that when he assumed office, he just ruled for 6 months, if I'm not mistaken, from my history lesson, that what he did, he had to relinquish some properties that he owned. He gathered his offices. It's like to purge yourself. He has a determinant, focus to what? To service and to, stem out issue of corruption, and they have to give out, and people of his government have to give out certain things to the government and to face the issue ahead of building this country. So this is the kind of thing I am saying. I remember during General Obasanjo in one of his town hall meetings, when education was discussed, a lady stood up and said, "We all know what is happening in our secondary school. Our children are no more writing their exams." She said, "You know where to take your child if you want him to get all what you need and what have you." So such kind of things with a good issue, if we make it, we purge ourselves, we have to tell ourselves the truth and now recommit, because those wastages that we are having through corruption, if they are properly challenged, we can have the best of salaries for our workers and have good roads and maintain our healthcare system. Nothing can prevent us.
You know, you've talked about mindset, and I want us to stay on that. Mindset, you talked about reawakening, our value system. You know, although most Nigerians agree corruption is endemic, in most cases, they also participate in small-scale transactional practices that undermine the country. The country's value system, which celebrates even wealth obtained by questionable means, is greatly flawed. How do we develop a strategic and effective public education to ensure a change of attitude and show people the true and damaging effects of corruption?
Yes, by rewarding people who are doing right. Yes, let me give you another example. Today in Nigeria, who are celebrated? You can see that's what we are talking about, who are glorified. So when you have a reward system that where the country is heading to, what is needed, are being what? Projected. You don't have heroes in fighting corruption. All the ones that we are about to have in one way or the other, what is it, the corruption fighting back that damages their reputation or what have you? We end up there. So that's it. I know of a secondary school where they don't allow cheating. And that secondary school, do you know what normally happen in that school? People took their children to that school. But before they could graduate in their final year, they don't have the final year students. But people know that before final year, their children will get good education. So when you have a system that those who are doing wrong are reaping rewards upon rewards, so it is just Nigeria have become, if you can't beat them, join them. So this is the narrative we need to change. And that's what pains me when I see prospective heroes are now ridiculized in our society. Look at when we have ASP Carey becoming a hero in fighting corruption and other things. At the end of the day, he fell into the same ditch. I mean, let's be realistic in getting the proper heroes so that we channel our country to where we are. But when you ask children now, from day one, they are just preparing themselves to get their chunk of this illicit wealth, is what everyone is even coveted, from the smallest child. So I'm not just blaming the politicians, but it's a quagmire that we found ourselves. And the one who are most responsible in getting ours are the politicians, because they have political power with them.
Mr. Kalgo, but the AGF, Latif Fagbemi SAN, along with the Independent Corrupt Practices Commission and also the EFCC, have called for the urgent passage of a robust whistleblower protection law in Nigeria. Will this help?
Well, it will, because whistleblowing, from what we are having here, a lot of the whistleblower will end up being a victim. It plays out a lot. We have cases a lot like that. I have cases that are coming. We will see a sincere whistleblower downtrodden. It happens a lot. So with a proper, I know during the last administration, they tried to do some, but I think a proper whistleblower regime brought to Nigeria will help us a lot, because the past one does not have we don't have a record of success of the last regime of whistleblower protection that was, and even the reward system that was said, if you point out corrupt monies, you will get this, you will get that. I think it did not work, but proper protection of whistleblowers, I think, is necessary in a situation that we find ourselves.
But when you look at the factors hampering asset recovery and faith in government actions in Nigeria, it looks like this is so because there is no publicly available data on the physical and financial assets that have been recovered inside or outside the country. And without those numbers, it's impossible to know who stole what, how much of it has been recovered, or where the recovered assets have been used. So how important is it that Nigeria implements internationally endorsed guidelines for the accountable management of returned stolen assets this time?
Well, if anyone would say that the recovery, the accounts, proper accounts of recovered wealth and what have you is not intact, I think it's by will and by determination. Okay. Because there's no way a constitutive authority will engage in an official assignment or conduct of its operation and function, and at the same time to claim that there are no these records. I know at times we complain about the proper law. I mean, these laws are to ease, but even administratively, these accounts need to be there. I think it's just part of what we are saying is just playing out of some of the corrupt practices catching up with maybe such authorities. Because to me, it's sound even naive to mention things like that, because this is a constituted authority with all apparatus to carry such actions. So I know at times previously we talk of what laws do we have in such return funds. I know plea bargain is one of the things that play out in that, but even plea bargain, when you do it, everything should be on record, definitely.
So talking about laws, Mr. Kalgo, how can the existing laws be strengthened as Nigeria steps up its fight against corruption? For instance, the Administration of Criminal Justice Act 2015 limits the use of appeals in criminal trials, increases coordination among justice institutions, and creates new pre-trial management techniques that allow faster commencement of substantive trials. The law was passed because ineffective coordination and weak criminal procedures have enabled lawyers to undermine processes. So how can it be strengthened?
Well, it brought a lot of innovations that can ease, the process of criminal administration in Nigeria. I think a lot of the times, how far have we reached in implementing it? That's the question. So at most of the time, it's not just the laws. You see in Nigeria, The laws are good, but it's just how are the population with the law. The law is on the other side, while de facto we live something else, not even the law. But I think the Administration of Criminal Justice Act has brought a lot of innovations that will help. Because if you look at our criminal system, what is there is there are a lot of awaiting trials. But it has empowered the magistrates to decongest even our police station and what have you. Let me tell you sincerely, the way this issue of corruption comes to play in even taking people to prison, awaiting trials. You see ordinary citizens, taking advantage of our weak system to take it out on others by just misusing the judicial system we have in the country. So I think it's about coming to implement these laws as they should, as they ought to be. And when we do so, I know it will help and bolster our criminal justice system. There are a lot of things that we have to do, especially with our court system, especially at the apex court, to have decongest our Supreme Court with the avalanche of cases making their way as of course to the Supreme Court is unsustainable.
All right. Mr. Kalgo, let's expand this conversation further. I want us to talk about repositioning Nigeria towards sustainable national integration. Because at the moment, our current democratic dispensation is plagued by a rise in several challenges. Talk about ethnic nationalism, agitations here and there, claims of marginalization, ethnic, regional, and religious tension. And so successive governments have attempted with varying degrees of success to address the problem of lack of unity. But these issues continually dominate state politics. Why are we still struggling?
You see, we are struggling because we failed to develop, the sophistication of the Nigerian. It's an irony when you look at what Nigerians are doing elsewhere and you come to our country, because these prejudices are the things that are holding back. Even all cases of corruption and what have you, you tend to find justification in these calls of marginalization and what have you, because whoever is blowing that trumpet, you will find out it becomes an excuse for someone who he believes is from his own part or what have you. Whatever he does, he kind of justified it. I think Nigerians have to understand we have everything to be proud of as the most populous black nation. I think we need to be projecting these things. All the time, whenever you talk of, Africans, Nigeria comes first because of the human capital we have and the natural resources. So why shouldn't we be proud? Why shouldn't we be proud? And I think a lot of our people in this country, you see, it's a simple logic. It's a simple logic that I think people should not be going back to these tribal and regional things. Because if you continue to do that, we will not integrate. We will never integrate. We will never. Someone who on a platform of saying, so tribe has never been a president, once you do that, you are confining your leadership to that tribe. And how do you get to the others across board? So I think when you look at Nigeria, even politically, the people who are doing well are the ones that assimilate and find it easier to synergize with others. I know a lot of things is said. Let me give you an example. I know we have Afenefere, we have Odua. Is that? We have Ohanesi. Is that? But when you come to the north, what we have is Arewa. And Arewa, it involves a lot of tribes. It involves a lot of religion. Arewa is not Hausa. Arewa is not Gwari. It's not Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Absolutely, yes.
Yes. So look, but when you pick up something and you just put, I'm saying this so that we develop. You don't, once you confine yourself to that, you are confining yourself to that where you are saying we should get out of tribalism. And you are using tribalism to justify your, to justify your reason for ascending. I think that's not the way to go. Bring out your qualities. Bring out your entitlement. What do you have for the nation? That's what we should be, clamoring for.
Mr. Kalgo, as a lawyer, speak to us about the role of the judiciary in Nigeria's democratic sustainability. What is the role of the judiciary in nation building?
The judiciary is the strongest fulcrum for any nation, whether democratic or not. Because at the end of the day, every other arm of government is you can say is partisan when you talk of all other arms of government, because you have the legislature and you have the executive, which are all partisan in politics. So the neutrality is in the judiciary. And apart from the neutrality, it has the sword and it is blind. The wisest men are there. So I think it cannot be overemphasized. And you can see how the Supreme Court has taken lead as a policy court. Look at it, gives intent to what the law is trying to achieve. For example, in the issue of local government, as you see. So when the Supreme Court, the judiciary, play its roles as required, I think it will be the fulcrum in even raising us above and coming out of this. When we talk of fight about corruption and what have you, the judiciary is there to, help us in achieving that. But I want to say, the political will too is something to consider. I know the families of those governors who get presidential pardon are happy. But here I'm talking as a nation. For us to break the back of corruption, we need clear examples of the force of law, where people who are engaged in such things are being sanctioned by the law. And look at what we have. After having the highest profile cases, at the end of the day, the political will come to play. The presidential pardon come to be. So absolutely. I would say we need to look seriously at.
All right, Mr. Kalgo, I wish we had more time to continue this conversation tonight, but sadly we have to go. Thank you so much for joining us. Umar Aminu Kalgo is a lawyer and the secretary of the Nigerian Bar Association, Benin Kebbi branch. Thank you so much for your brilliant perspectives on our subject matter tonight. Thank you so much, sir. And thank you very much for watching, everyone. It marks the end of today's episode of Politics Tonight, but you can watch the repeat broadcast of this episode at midnight. I am Olanjumoke Olatunji.